So this is the overview of sugar consumption or volume of sugar consumed. Now, this is a distinction between craving the sweetness and flavor of sugar and the amount that you eat. So there's people who are like a yellow or red dot in craving sugar, which is another gene, that they'll just crave the taste of it, but they're like a green dot in sugar consumption, so they just need one tiny little square of chocolate. I'm done, and these people are super annoying because like I mean, no offense, but it's like they just need a little taste and they're finished, where some people need not a square, they need 3 bars. So we're making a distinction between volume and the flavor of it. So right now we're talking about volume, and there's it's about signaling. It's a sensor in the brain, particularly called the GLUT2 sensor. And if you have a green dot in this gene, that means that your sensitivity to the amount of sugar that's in your blood is highly tuned. Whereas if you have a red or yellow dot variation, you're not fully aware of just how much sugar is in the blood. So there's this signal that goes out, we need to have more sugar in here because we're running low, even though technically you may not be. So people who are green dots they may enjoy the flavor, but they don't need to have much of it. People who are red and yellow dots may find themselves consuming a lot more than average. So there's now with a lot of things that you can genetically override if you're a green dot and still consume a lot of sugar. And from my personal history is I'm a green dot in sugar consumption, which means genetically I should be able to not need to eat a high volume. Yet I was a sugar addict for 15 years. And so why is that? Because I had at least one of the 5 main reasons why people crave high volumes of sugar, even though they may not genetically require it, or not, require is not the right word, genetically be vulnerable to it, is that I was emotionally eating. That I was dealing with a lot of stress and trauma growing up with the gaslighting at home and the violence at school, and I'm very public about what happened to me on podcasts and whatnot. We're not going to go into an excavation of my personal history here, but the point being is to give you some background as to why I was emotionally anesthetizing with high volumes of sugar, even though I'm a green dot in sugar consumption. The other things that can happen that make people crave to have more sugar is that they have an underlying metabolic disorder, they have an underlying gut infection like candida, there are mineral or nutrient deficiencies, guises sugar cravings, or there's mitochondrial damage where you can't burn fat as a fuel source, so your body craves more sugar to make up for the energy deficit that would otherwise be given to you by the burning of fat. So I had more than one of those 5 things going on. I had hidden gut infections, I definitely had mineral and nutrient deficiencies, and I certainly had mitochondrial damage as well. So so that's why I was craving sugar all the time. I do think the majority of the issue was actually the emotional override. So for people who are green dots, you're not likely to prefer a high sugar diet, and so you have a much decreased risk for obesity and other chronic issues like cardiovascular disease, tooth decay, accelerated aging, diabetes, etc. And if you do crave, then again, with the other green dots, it's like, just be honest with yourself. Then if you are craving to eating higher volumes of sugar, then you got to ask, is it one of those 5 things that's maybe causing it? And this is the official report. Talks about 25 grams of sugar a day. That's way too much. It doesn't match anything in hunter-gatherer universe. 25 grams of sugar a day. That's not a thing. Because the hunter-gatherers had very rare access to actual sugars, like fruit, when it was in season, for maybe a couple times a year, for maybe a couple days or a couple weeks a year, and that's it, to the rare honeycomb. That's it. Like there really wasn't a lot of sugar to be had. Very few places in the world have, regular fruit all year round. That's really rare. So my sense is that the recommendations for modern days about just this is the lower bar of sugar shot. I think those that are all way too high, and so just really avoid things that have. If you avoid processed foods in general, you'll be avoiding most of the added sugars. I mean, there's even things like cereal bars and ready to eat cereal. I mean, I remember eating. I remember going to summer camp, and they had this cereal called the Sugar Smacks, and it's this like puffed grain thing coated with like layers of sugar. And these things were like currency in summer camp, candy and these little box sugar bomb cereals. And I remember when the transition in the year when they changed it from Sugar Smacks to Honey Smacks, because so then suddenly parents woke up to that sugar may be bad for their kids, and so they rebranded it to Honey Smacks, and then they rebranded it again later to just Smacks, and removed all references to sugar on the cover, even though when you read the ingredients, I remember this even as a kid. Sugar Smacks, the first 4 ingredients were sugar. The first four were some version of it. It was like honey, sucrose, and like 2 other types of sugar. It was first 4 ingredients. I mean, it's crazy to me. Anyway. So be very mindful of the amount of sugar you have, and it may be worth an exercise to actually not calorie count, but to sugar gram count how many grams of sugar you consume in the course of a day, and that would be, I think, quite illustrative for you. So if you're agreeing for sugar consumption, you naturally would avoid having lots of sugar in your diet, but if you do, you know what to check. Check those 5 things.